You're watching America Trends. I'm Mary Burt-Godwin. I love having our next guest on the show. He's a Chief Amazement Officer at Shep Presentations, customer service and customer experience expert. It's the one and only Shep Hyken. Welcome back to America Trends, Shep.
Great to be back here. Thank you for having me.
I love having you on the show. And before we dive in, there's always a lot of topics I have to ask you today. But first, I want to start, because I know we talk a lot about airlines. And I don't know if you heard the recent thing that happened, but on United Airlines, did you hear this tweet that a professional baseball player put out about his wife? There was a Toronto Blue Jays pitcher whose wife, who's pregnant and has two little kids, 5 and 2. Apparently, the kids spilled popcorn, and he tweeted, "Can you believe they made my wife pick up the popcorn? Because she's pregnant and she has to bend over at 22 weeks." I don't know. So this huge dialogue on Twitter ensued, and I didn't see if United actually chimed in, but he then at the next day tweeted, "Just so you know, United Airlines has contacted me. They are speaking to the flight attendant." And, he circled back to kind of get United out of the spotlight. But I thought, oh man, this could be a major moment for United to come in and kind of work on their customer service. And, a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's her kids, she should pick it up. But it kind of is this open dialogue on Twitter, which, that's where all the things happen. So I just want to know your thoughts on that, how an airlines could show up in that moment.
Wow. And Twitter, they're still using Twitter today.
A lot of people aren't. I just read that KPBS actually they got rid of their Twitter account for lots of reasons. But anyway, Go ahead. Yeah.
So we can obviously not compare spilled popcorn to the incident where United took a passenger off the plane physically several years ago.
Yeah, I remember
And I
that.
always joke about how United, their new slogan is, we don't beat our competition, we beat our passengers.
That's a good one.
United, it's like the friendly skies of United, really. But here's the thing. Every business has mistakes. Nobody is perfect. In this particular case, I've seen this happen where a child makes a complete mess, spills popcorn, candy, whatever on the floor. And you know what? The flight attendants, it is what it is. They help. But you would think the mom or the dad or whoever was there taking care of the kid would somehow get involved. But we weren't there, so we don't know exactly what happened. But I will tell you this. If it happens to be the flight attendant's fault, this is a great teaching opportunity. So I like what happened in that the passenger, or at least the baseball player whose passenger was his wife, made the complaint, went public with it, and that United stepped in and they said, hey, we're figuring out what's going on. They aren't saying they're at fault, but they're not at the same time saying it isn't their fault. They're saying we need to investigate. And the fact that they were willing to do that is very important. Here's the point. Whether it's United Airlines or any business of any kind, if somebody posts something negative about you, it is an opportunity for you to step in and turn a PR nightmare into an opportunity to show how good you are by how fast you respond, the way you respond, and ultimately you want to move the conversation offline to direct message, deal with it, then come back and say, glad we could get it all taken care of. And in the perfect world, that passenger or customer of whatever the business is going to come back and say, yep, I'm so glad. And I love the way the baseball player actually followed up and said, United contacted that person. So that's great. So they're doing it all the right way now.
I agree. And I like what you said about them not automatically coming in and owning faults. It was just that, hey, we're looking into this. And I guess you can say we're sorry for your experience. But again,
you can say that. Why not?
Necessarily want to, go in and say, yes, we did it without getting all the facts, right? Because the CEO or the brand manager wasn't there on the plane and didn't know all the facts ahead of time. So they needed to investigate a little bit.
But I think it's okay to say, we're sorry this happened, and we need to find out why it happened and get the whole story. So we're going to get back to you shortly. I always joke that when I have an argument with my wife, even if it's not my fault, I can still say, I'm sorry that we had an argument.
Yeah.
You know?
And for your
And-
experience, how you
right,
perceived it, right? Yeah.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So they're doing it right.
I know a lot of times we talk about reviews on this when you're on our show. And I want to just talk about one more personal thing that happened over the weekend, because I went to a hotel and the bell staff or the valet gave great service. I mean, I had 2 luggage racks full of luggage with my girls in their competition. And they were so nice, and all of these things, they just went above and beyond. And then at the end, he gave me a card with Google, a place where I could go leave a review with their names written on it, the 2 nighttime staff. And he's like, hey, we're doing a thing here, the nighttime bell service versus the morning. If you'd go on, it would help us win this contest. And I said, absolutely, I will do that for you. And I kept the card by my bedside, and I saw them again the next night. They helped me again. So by the end, I did go on and I mentioned them by name on the review. They made it so easy for me, and they made me want to do it for them. And I think, that was the best way they could have done that.
Right. Well, I love the first best thing that they did was they created the service that would compel you to want to leave any review regardless. And maybe they had to prompt you and ask you to do it, and they gave you a fun way and a fun reason to do so, and that they were having a contest. You say, I'm going to help these people out. And I love, that's a great way of getting somebody to leave the review. And I think it's like an ethical bribe in the sense that, and I don't love to talk about the word bribe because sometimes it gets misunderstood. But in this case, the ethical bribe is something that's completely legit. It's like, hey, I've got a contest. If you think I gave you the service that would deserve a review, please leave one.
And it's different because I know sometimes you'll get a receipt at maybe, I don't know, Starbucks or Target, and they say, hey, go to the email address at the bottom of this receipt, and then you could win blah, blah, blah. And I think, I'm never going to win that. I'm never going to, no, it's not going to work out for me. So it's not worth my time. But these folks personalized it, which is something I want to talk about next. But they personalized it in a way of, they gave me the service I wanted and needed, and brought me waters and did all these things. And then they said, hey, and they were young, and I don't know, it just was the best way to go about doing it. So it's almost like I wanted to help them rather than me winning something that would never win, right?
You were emotionally connected to the experience of leaving a review versus being given an incentive to do so if you would.
So then that leads me to a topic I want to talk about with you, is personalization with a brand and how that can help the customer service experience.
Right. Well, personalization has been bantered around for quite a while. And the cool thing is today it's even better. And the personalization is in the form of making you feel as if the brand or whoever you're communicating with understands you, the customer, versus the other thousands and thousands of customers they might have. Now, in the past, it used to be, let's break the customers up into different groups. For example, I'll use Nike because it's one of my favorite. It's crystal clear. Running shoes versus tennis court shoes versus golf shoes. If I buy golf shoes from Nike on their website, they're probably not going to send me a bunch of information about other types of shoes. They're only going to send me information about golf shoes in the game of golf. Hence, they're personalizing their marketing to me. But now, today, you can hyper-personalize, meaning with AI and all the computer programs they have, they can really, truly individualize their marketing messages. But if you go into a hotel, and you mentioned you took your girls to a hotel, and you walk in, and as they're pulling up the screen and looking at your reservation, the person behind the front desk says, welcome back. I see you were here a year ago for the same competition. And all of a sudden, they're really what I would call not just hyper, but micro personalizing to you. You feel connected to them in a way that if it's much better than a generic, greeting or a generic message. That's what personalization is.
I like that. The remembering me hasn't happened, which I wish that it would because I'm there a lot. But one hotel we stayed at actually had little goodie bags for dancers that had hair ties, very specific to why we were there. And I thought it was the competition that was giving it out, but it was the hotel that personalized baggies with some wipes and some other, little goodies for the girls that I thought was absolutely, girls and boys, that was absolutely the personalization touch that you're mentioning. And I think that's absolutely right, because you think, wow, they definitely took the extra step to not just give me a water bottle that everybody wants, but also some hair ties and these other things that we know specifically to the demographic that was coming in.
Right. And by the way, you use the word competition so that people don't misunderstand. Your kids were there for a competition that wasn't a competitor hotel.
Right. Oh, yes, exactly. Thank you for
Right.
clarifying. That's exactly right.
And so what even though what's the best way to describe this? The experience of personalization was at a mass level, meaning all the guests coming in that weekend or that time was there for a competition. And so what they did is they personalized to the event that you were at, not necessarily you individually, but because you're attending the event, you felt that connection as if it was you individually. So
Yeah.
this is a real important concept. Personalization doesn't mean always that micro personalization where I recognize you from before and I can
Right.
see the last time you were in the hotel, you had this corner room. Do you want it again?
Although I would love that, Shep. I would love that.
I know.
Hey,
I know.
we got to
And we
take a quick
noticed-
break. Will you stick
sure,
around
we
for
can do
another
that.
segment? I got
I'm
some more
happy to
questions
do
for you.
that.
Okay, everyone
Cool.
home, you're watching America Trends, and this is Shep Hyken at Hyken.com. And we will be right back to talk about more customer service experience right after this quick break.